Where does King of Fish pop into all this? When do you decide to do a reality show for Amazon? Like, how does that even happen?
Doesn't everybody just do that on the
Yeah.
side? Like, just spin up a quick little reality show. Why not? Welcome to Restaurant 365 Presents Behind the Numbers, a show where we talk to restaurant owners, operators, chefs, kitchen managers, CFOs, everybody in between, and we want to know what makes successful restaurants tick. Before we get started, a quick reminder to like and subscribe to the show wherever you're watching, and please consider leaving us a review. It really helps us continue to bring you all of these amazing guests and conversations and continue to grow and support the amazing restaurant community. And with that, I'm your host, Rich Sweeney.
And I'm Mark Cohen, and we're excited to be here today with Michael Ungaro, CEO of Southern California's San Pedro Fish Market. If you're not familiar, San Pedro's been family owned and operated since his grandfather started the business in 1956. It's a small corner shop selling seafood to the locals. It's now grown into one of the largest restaurants in the country. It sits on 55,000 square feet of LA waterfront. They've got seating for about 3,000 people. They currently hold 4 Guinness World Records, operate 3 other locations with a 4th in the work. And they self-produce the show King of Fish on Amazon Prime. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. And they're serving an estimated 2.4 million guests each year. Michael, welcome to Behind the Numbers. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So let's dig in. Rich, let's ask some big, meaty questions.
Yeah, so we got to, I mean, I know you're the fish guy, but we got to go with the meaty questions. So we'll go for a nice fatty fish. I don't know. I'm trying to pull anything together.
Let's go with a swordfish. It's the filet mignon of the sea.
There you go.
Perfect. Chef's kiss for that one. So let's start this one out. I mean, what do you think in your mind is the most important thing for restaurants to be doing day to day, week to week? Like what are the things that need to be on top of mind for the folks who are like in the front line running restaurants these days?
Well, that's a great question. There's a few different things that come to mind there. I mean, on one hand, obviously you need data. You know, it's like you need your scorecard. Obviously, yeah, you guys could back me up on that.
A little bit.
I think kind of the way I put it is if you don't know your numbers, that's basically your scorecard. You can't tell if you're winning or losing the game. I mean, that's kind of fundamental across life. But I think in the restaurant industry, because the margins can be so tight and one thing can throw everything off, that if you don't have really good reporting and really good numbers, it's really hard to know what decisions to make moving forward. Now, we have kind of a complicated business model because we have different LLCs and we've kind of grown in a weird way and we've had internal lawsuits with family, all kinds of weird stuff going on. And so when we look at our enterprise, it's like we're in the process of building what we think will be the largest restaurant in the country. I signed a 49-year lease to rebuild our legacy location on 55,000 square feet. And, you know, it's like we've got to figure out, well, how are we going to pay for this? You know, and we have 2 big projects that are in the same spot. So what you guys might not know is like we had to leave our legacy location because they're redeveloping the waterfront, and we moved into a temporary parking lot, right? So without really good reporting and good numbers, it's hard to know, like, okay, we're going to go from 3,000 seats and this 2 million customer thing a year customer count that we had, and we got to cram this into a temporary location until we can figure out how to transition back into where we were. So now we're going to be a third of our size, operating in a parking lot with rented kitchens. And how are we going to make that function? What technology do we need? How are we going to get it? And, you know, to be honest, we got that thing open in 60 days.
That's amazing.
And
That's
impressive. we actually went from, I mean, our sales dropped significantly, but I don't know. I think we're doing somewhere in the neighborhood of $11 million out of a parking lot with 900 seats. So, I mean, it's like probably the world's most successful parking lot. But the thing was, the key to that is, in addition to knowing your numbers, you'll have to continuously be open to innovating. And I think that's hard in the restaurant industry because you get so stuck in your SOPs and your procedures. Mm-hmm. You know, and you're like, we show up, we do this. And then so when you come in with a new idea, like we want to switch over to a new accounting software, or we want to use a QR code scanning, or we want to change the point of sale system. It was an impossible task for us because we had been doing the same things for so long. Even though we needed those changes and we needed those innovations, it wasn't until we found ourselves with the, hey, by the way, you're going to have to leave the building because we're probably going to have to serve you an eviction notice, and we'll find a place maybe for you to function until you can rebuild. I mean, it forces you to reassess everything you're doing. So if you don't have a standard practice around innovation, and around changing and around being flexible and being plastic, you die. And I think we had a lot of warm up for that during the pandemic, because a lot of restaurants I watch are like, well, we're just going to wait for this thing to end in 2 weeks.
No.
Like 2 years later, right? And so what I would watch in that case, again, where innovation came in is I would say, well, we have to find a way to continue to function. We're probably not going to be able to be as profitable, but we have a lot of employees. And at the time, I want to say somewhere in that area, we got close to about 300 to 350 employees. So like, how do we make people working? How do we keep them working? How do we continue to help them feed their families while taking care of our own? And that was a technology push. So we're like, well, we could do third-party deliveries. And what we'll do is we'll create one of our world famous shrimp trays, which is what we're known for. We'll price it down just to cover the cost of food and labor. So let's call it a $19.99, which would normally be $40 or $50. We'll do it for $20 and feed a family of 4 and push that out through third party. It keeps our suppliers supplying us with product. It keeps our people working, and we can test some of this new technology. So you fast forward past the pandemic, and now, we're finding, oh my God, we're not just getting shut down. We're losing the whole building. Like, let's look at what did we do to innovate? And we had implemented multiple systems outside of technology. One was the entrepreneur operating system, which really forced us to reorganize how we do things and assign who was going to be responsible for doing what. So I think, like, the original question is like, you need to know your numbers, and you need to be flexible and being able to make interpretations about what they say and innovate around that all the time.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the conversion rate of like 3,000 seats to parking lot spaces. I don't like the math. It doesn't check out.
And there's no parking because it's a construction zone.
Well, you're in the parking lot. You've taken away the parking.
Yeah. I mean, I look at what we pulled off there, and I guess the third thing I'd add to is you got to have a really good team.
Yeah.
And it's really about building a culture of people that can row in the same boat in the same direction. We didn't really have that before. We were very compartmentalized. Like, stay out of my way. I'm doing this. I'm going to take care of it. Like, we had a fish market that we evolved into a restaurant over the decades. So you had a whole restaurant team that was doing the restaurant thing. You had a fish market team that did the fish market thing, and they kind of coexisted, but they didn't really help one another out as much as they could. And that's showing up now as we're in this parking lot trying to figure out how to cram everything down. And it's a 23,000 square foot parking lot. It's not small, but it's still, there's still, you have a smaller team that's operating on technology with QR codes where you're running food to tables. It's not the same experience we had, but we managed to make it work. Managed to make work. And I still like to look at it like, how did we do that?
That sounds like the most wild quick fire challenge, ever to be thrown at anybody, as far as like, okay, we're going to take this and just completely flip it upside down, figure out how to make it work. And I mean, one thing, I don't know, that I've always loved about restaurant people is we will always figure out a way to make it work. Like, no matter what comes down the pipeline, we'll find a way to handle it and make sure that we can, at least, come out on top. And if not, we're going to go down swinging, trying to figure out every way possible to get through a situation.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have tough skin. And, it helps to, I could see this going either way, but I think one of our strengths is that we are a family owned and operated business. Although we're really trying to shift that, right? Because I'm third generation going on fourth. Not everybody wants to operate it the same way. And it turns out we're really bad at, I'm just going to sound weird. We're not good at operating restaurants. Like, it all showed up when we tried to open our third location, which is near where I'm at now in Long Beach. It was a Joe's Crab Shack. And what was interesting is I was concerned about this because I actually had left my family to open my own restaurant at one point and failed miserably, like almost bankruptcy miserably. And I learned a lot from that experience of like, don't ever do that again. So when we had this opportunity for this Joe's Crab Shack here in Long Beach, California, it's on Alameda Bay. It's on the waterfront. It's a big building, and it was an opportunity. I won't go into all the details, but when we opened it, I was like, I don't think we know what we're doing, because we don't run a typical restaurant. We have this fish market where you can buy fish and bring it to the kitchen, and they'll put it on the griddle and put it on a cafeteria tray and send it outside. But we don't have inventory. No one's monitoring inventory. We're just buying stuff and selling it. And we had so much volume, we didn't care, because we were going through 200 tons of shrimp a year annually. We're 200 tons. So the volume was there that, high volume, high profit forgives a lot of sins.
It does. Sales fixes everything, right?
It really does.
I always say that. Yeah.
And so when we got this other location and tried to open it, we didn't own it. We're leasing it. It's on city property with a building owner. So like basically two landlords, and it wasn't in very good shape, and we had to borrow money. And then we opened it on the date I'll never forget. It was, I think, February 1st of 2020. I don't know if you know, but like a few weeks later, everybody got shut down.
Really? What happened?
So in the process of that 6 weeks of operating, it was really clear that every single member of my family had a different opinion on how that business should run, and none of them were the managers we hired.
Yeah.
So it was like the pandemic forced us to really withdraw and look at really be introspective about who we were and what we were trying to accomplish. And the entrepreneur operating system helped us to refine a lot of that and get out of the way. And so it was a painful process, but it really benefited us in learning that we have to separate the ownership seat from the operation seat. And if you're going to have operators, when you go in as an owner, you work for them. And what are you talking about? I built this place from the ground up. I know. And this is not the same place anymore. We have to change how we're doing it. And it's hard, but it's fundamental to being successful is being humble. Being humble and being a follower when you need to be and a leader when you need to be, and knowing the difference between the two.
That's good advice.
Absolutely. I think kind of, that piece of it there, that humility that comes with it, with success is, you've got to know when it's time to take that leadership role, and know when somebody else, you've put them in that leadership role, and you've got to take a backseat to them and let them do the job that you put them in place to do, and let them, have a chance to succeed and really shine.
Yeah, I have a good friend that's, it's sort of I guess you could call it a coaching program. It's called the Macklin Connection, and we implement and license it out, and it's really great at shifting the culture of the business. And I was listening to something he said on an interview he did. He goes, when I was in operations, I had I think there were engineers working for him, and he was asking one of them their opinion, and he goes, "Listen, I'm neck down," and I'm like, "What the heck does that mean?" And what he realized is what these people didn't just say, "I'm going to come in and tell me what to do, and so I can go home." And he goes, "But I'm paying for 100% of you, not 90%. I want to know what you're thinking." Mm-hmm. And he goes, and what he realized and this is common in our business too, I realize is the people that are on the floor working, they could solve a lot of problems if you give them the space to do it.
Yes.
But the problem is, especially in a family business like mine, is they raise their hand and they get 6 different reasons, one from each owner, why it's not going to work. And so they get discouraged and they don't want to contribute. And you miss out on all that input of what the people that are actually down there every day working is, or have to contribute. And so I thought about that because, I am one of the stand that I have as a CEO is how can we utilize, and I don't mean that as a tool, but really open the space of opportunity and possibility for every employee to be 100% invested in the company. Like contribute. And by the way, if you have a great idea, own it. Be accountable for it. Lead us through it. I'll follow you. Because I can't see what everybody sees. There's too many of us working here. I just don't know. And my ideas are, as a visionary, are way up there in the past the clouds, So I need somebody to reel me back in,
right.
Pun intended. So
I'm curious. You're going through all this. You're taking all this organized family chaos. Getting it, righting the ship. Where does King of Fish pop into all this? When do you decide to do a reality show for Amazon? Like, how does that even happen?
Doesn't everybody just do that on the side? Like, just spin up a quick little reality show.
This is probably your idea based on what I'm hearing from you.
I had been in a business program for some time where we were studying business narratives, and the teacher was like, you learn these in 6th grade, but no one tells you what to do with them. The plot mountain. And he would say, I remember when my kids are learning that and they hate it, and it's like the elements of the exposition, and you have the conflict and the rising action, the resolution, the denouement, or happily ever after. And he goes, these are really powerful if you know how to use them, because human beings, biologically, we adapt to stories all the time because we're always trying to figure out what something means, right? And you're little, you see that little red thing, you touch it, that's fire. That means don't touch it. That's a story you make up. And you learn to work with that as you get older. And he goes, human beings are always looking for meaning, and stories is the best way to speak to them about that. So I started thinking about it, and we had an opportunity to be on a couple of random TV shows, like cooking shows and this and that. And as the camera was following the family around, everybody was just kind of a natural ham in front of the camera, right? So this one company reached out to us and goes, we heard you're going to try to set 3 Guinness World Records in a single day. And we did the world's largest lobster festival for them. There was all Maine lobsters. So they filmed the whole thing and they created a television concept around it called Fishmongers. And they made a sizzle reel and they tried to shop it everywhere. Nobody wanted it, even though it was awesome. Nobody wanted it. And they gave it to me. And so I was looking at this going, there's a lot that we could do with this. We were selling retail products in the grocery at the time. So I would go into these grocery stores and go, well, who are you? Why are you here in Texas at HEB? We never heard of you before. Watch the show. And it was just a 3-minute commercial, basically. But they would buy the product thinking we had Duck Dynasty with seafood and it was going to be on A&E or something. But I had nothing else. I just realized this is powerful enough to produce a big sale, but nothing to back it up so that the product would actually move. So the product didn't sell. They sent it all back.
Oh, man.
So I'm like, okay, but I think there's something here if we tell our story. So we started to look around and we put a team together. And our executive producer, Tim, he does a Bar Rescue and Below Deck and a bunch of big shows. And so he was looking for a side project. So we teamed up with him and he made the first 4 episodes called Kings of Fish. And we put it just on our social media at the time. It was Facebook primarily. And we saw a 50% jump in sales that month.
Wow.
I mean, and the only thing we could, and it was our busiest month where we were already at capacity. So we didn't even think that was possible. So the only thing we could contribute was it's got to be this content. So we just kept making more and more of it. And then during COVID, everybody was starved for content because everyone was home watching TV. So Pepsi reached out through a distributor and said, we'll give you some money to make it into an actual series of 20-minute episodes, like a full season. So that's what we did. And, rest is history. Now it's on Amazon Prime. I'm working on season 2.
Amazing.
That is awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. Turns out being evicted and forced into a parking lot was a great storyline to end with.
No kidding.
So season 2 will tell how we made it this far.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
No cliffhangers hanging out around here.
Yeah. There's plenty of opportunities for B2B sponsorships too. If anyone's listening, we're looking for you.
So I'm curious now you're in like the pains of rebuilding, let's say. Hopefully it's getting better every day, but have you learned anything from the parking lot that you want to implement in the new restaurants? Like, is anything going to carry over there? Yeah.
So one of the things we did was we had been moving to Toast as our point of sale system, and Me and You was another one we were looking at, which is a QR code system. Mm-hmm. And so they worked with us, and seriously, it was 60 days from the time we left the building. It was like March 3rd, and on Cinco de Mayo is when we opened in the parking lot. And those systems taught us a lot about how we could lower the cost to produce the transaction and produce them faster. Because one of the things that was happening, even with 3,000 seats, is we had about 100-mile draw. So we had become more of a tourist attraction. So you had people that were driving an hour or more to no parking lot because our parking lot couldn't handle the amount of cars we were bringing in at the time. This is when we started the restaurant. So you'd have to park sometimes literally 1 mile and walk an undefined path in wheelchairs and strollers and walkers, which I documented, to then wait in a line that was 200 yards long to get into the restaurant, another hour. And then when you got in, we weren't a typical restaurant. You could go over here and buy fresh fish, and then you could stand in that line over there to have it cooked, or you can go to that stand that we made it already, or you can go over to this counter and get a fish and chips, and that was the bar over there, and then we had another bar here and live crab. So the experienced customers knew they divided and conquered. You get a table, because it was all picnic tables on a deck of 3,000 seats were outside on the water. You go wait in that line, you wait in that line, and we'll all converge with food later. And it was chaos. And we would realize after we opened the temporary location that which, by the way, we're still in 2 years later. We're just moving out of it in the next month. We're building another temporary location that'll seat 1,800 and have a 4,000 square foot kitchen.
It's the biggest pop-ups I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
super pop-ups, right? And what we noticed was, well, if we were doing this system, which we had to really just cram in and fast track, people can come in and sit down because we didn't have the space and the capacity to have a full fish market. We're in a parking lot. So what we'll do is we'll highlight our most popular items, sit down, scan it with your phone, and we'll just run it to you. And what showed up is customers are like, I do miss some aspect of standing in line. However, which I've never heard anyone say in their life, is I'm getting beers a lot faster. And we're like, yeah, because it was a 20-minute line to get one beer before. So now we're just running them to you. So in that 20 minutes, you could get 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So we were able to increase our alcohol sales, which works well for us. And we were already selling more Modelo than Angel Stadium. It was like we weren't selling beer, but we were able to, cram the sales from 3,000 down to 1,000 seats and be more efficient with it. And also, the QR code, it takes away the experience of touching, seeing, and feeling the fish in a fish market, but you're still getting, if we're talking about like the happily ever after and the plot mountain, you're still getting the big giant tray of fish for the whole family to share. So people walked out happy. And that's something new we learned. So we just signed another lease to open a location in Monterey on Fisherman's Wharf in the 17,000 square foot restaurant. And we're working with an architectural firm, Studios is their name, to do Italy's.
Okay.
And we hired them specifically because what I had described before about all these kitchens and bars.
That sounded
everywhere,
like an Italy to me, right? Like that sounded exactly
we sort
like
of like in a real down and dirty way created what Italy did correctly.
Right.
So we might as well hire their architects.
You did it
to
wrong.
teach us how to do it.
They got it right. Yeah, got it.
So that's what we're going to test out in Monterey. Is we're trying to test more of an experiential brand where you kind of have the wet bar and the kitchen. And then when we rebuild the legacy location in San Pedro, which I signed a 49-year lease for, we'll start breaking ground on that probably next year. And that we'll be able to bring in studios and really design it to be more of that seafood-centric Italy sort of concept that we want to get back to.
Rich, have you ever heard of a 49-year restaurant lease? This is a concept that is totally foreign to me.
That is something that, like, when I opened up my first restaurant, would have made me run screaming into the night of like just thinking about being attached to a 49-year lease. Like, my hands started to shake a little bit before when you said it. That's so. Besides that one, I mean, I feel like we've gone between the pop-ups and the locations and the one that's kind of going to be reopened. How many locations are you guys up to now?
So we currently have 3, and one is the temporary location. And it's transitioning over into the next phase of the temporary location, which will have 1,800 seats. That's a 3 to 5 year lease that we can exist in while we rebuild next door. It's all in the same waterfront in LA. Mm-hmm. The Monterey is a 30-year lease, also risky, but we have a pretty good deal with the city of Monterey that, listen, if this thing doesn't work out for some reason, the last thing you want is an unsuccessful restaurant on the wharf. So let us walk away and you can keep it and find somebody else and we'll let you have whatever we built in there. Just don't come after us for the lease or the loan. and they thought we were crazy, but we're like, no, it's, the Monterey Wharf is really historic. This building actually was built in 1956. I had a chance to meet the daughter of the original builder when I was there last week. And I'm like, the last thing I want to do is be a scar on that waterfront. After watching our waterfront get torn down and us have to move into a parking lot, like I wouldn't do anything to scar it. So the city understood that, and it's like, we want it to be successful. We're dedicated to making it successful. But if you don't think we're successful and we're not meeting our numbers, we need an exit clause so you can find somebody else to come in there and that takes care of the history and the legacy of that waterfront.
I think that's a perfect location for your concept. You got
I'm really excited about it.
Aquarium there. You've got it's perfect.
It's interesting too. You guys might not. Well, you might know this, Mark, from knowing some of the mutual people we know in my hometown. The Monterey is like a miniature version of San Pedro, where I grew up. And the more I spend there, the more I see the same. It's the same fishing families. Matter of fact, when I went to speak to the city council, the last question they asked me before they awarded it to us was, "Are you Sicilian or Italian?" I'm like, on a live Zoom. Okay. Well, I'm both. My mom was Sicilian. I brought 2 Sicilians with me if I needed them. Sitting behind me.
Just got real. Wow.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I'm like, okay, this is just like home. I didn't realize how much like home it is.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's cool. I think it'll be fun.
That's cool. So now wait, I'm trying to keep the math together. Was that just 2 of the 3 locations?
I'm sorry. So we have one in Long Beach, one in Pedro. We have one in Wilmington, which we actually just announced. We're probably going to be closing that one. It's more of a storage facility with a small restaurant, but it doesn't really fit our model moving forward, which is more seaside, big locations with full fish markets. It's more of a neighborhood location. It does okay, but the problem with it is it's been with us since I was probably 3 years old, and we're going to keep the facility in the building, but we're finding that the smaller fast casual concepts are really outside of the brand that we're after, and it doesn't really give our employees a chance to grow and flourish. Like I have people there that it's so small, they're busy wearing like 6 hats, and we want them to be able to take the knowledge and experience and grow with us. So we have San Pedro we're rebuilding in. We're in a parking lot, moving to a temporary location, moving to a legacy location. That's a 5-year project. We have Long Beach, which we opened in 2020, and that's doing pretty well. That's Old Joe's Crab Shack. It's 471 seats on 11,000 square feet. Monterey, 17,000 square feet. We're expecting that to be 500 seats. And then the goal is, once these are all done, is 1 a year for the next 10 years. And we're looking at Phoenix. We're looking at Las Vegas. We're talking to some city officials in Anaheim. There's a lot of growth potential in the Anaheim area around the resort. And then I'm interested in San Francisco too. And so we're able to track where our customers come from in a lot of different ways. And we're finding we have these huge concentrations in Northern California, San Diego, Vegas, and Phoenix. And the Vegas, Phoenix people, they come and make day trips and go back the same day. It's insane.
Those shrimp trays. People love those shrimp trays.
It is something else. So that's what we're building on. And Kings of Fish, tells the whole story. Who we are, what we're doing, what we're up to, and it gives the opportunity for business partners to be integrated in, so we can show like we just had probably our biggest sponsor is going to be U.S. Foods, and we're switching from Cisco to U.S. Foods, and they're like, well, how's that going to work? And I go, I don't know. You want me to jump out of a plane with a U.S. Foods parachute because Cisco didn't deliver? I can do whatever. You tell me. So we get to be pretty inventive on the storylines, and they're a lot of fun to make.
That would be fun to see.
Yeah. If I survived that jump, that's a different question.
Could you do it in a giant shrimp costume, though?
Yeah.
Like in honor of the shrimp trays.
I could land on the tray.
That would be fun to see. So how many of those shrimp trays do you serve a week, a year?
Well, as I was saying earlier, we were doing over 2 million customers a year and about 200 tons of shrimp. So I've never really calculated it down to, cause the trays are all family style and it's typically 6 to 10 people.
Yeah.
And what we sort of evolved into is, in the beginning, we didn't have any of that. When we opened the San Pedro location in its last form before the eviction was Good Friday of 1982. And that was the last major El Nino, if any of you guys were alive. Like it rained that whole year. It's probably the worst one I've ever had. So all the seats outside, everybody mortgaged their homes and there's no customers. So again, that really forces innovation. And by the way, we were in a parking lot before that opening for about a year and a half because we got evicted from the original waterfront location while they were redeveloping it the first time.
There's a trend here.
Yeah. So when it opened and it rained, my uncle and my dad and my grandfather at the time, we were like, we got to figure something out. So they were like throwing everything against the wall to see what stuck. And what they did was they found some old rendering tanks in a junkyard that were used to render down cattle, I guess, after they were killed or whatever, slaughtered.
Okay.
And they said, we'll put some mesquite in here with maybe a gas line, and it'll be a barbecue, and we'll just, for an extra $1, if you buy a fish, we'll throw it on the grill. And then all of a sudden, the local Mexican food restaurant, I think it became Acapulco's, ironic, but it was El Paso Cantina at the time. They had fajitas, which no one had ever seen before in the 80s, right? What's a fajita? Bell pepper, tomato, onions, and steak or chicken, but we could do that with shrimp or fish because we had plenty of it. And that's how the shrimp tray evolved. And we put griddles outside. We made up our own seasoning. We threw the bell pepper, tomato, and onion. We put our whatever fish that we had an excess of that wasn't too expensive. And we made these trays of seafood fajitas with tortillas. And we're like, what would be great with that? Red potatoes like they do on the East Coast. And we got steamers in our crab tank. So we buy all these red potatoes and steam them, put them in the walk-in, chill them, and then hand cut them and throw them in with the seasoning and the butter. And then we're like, what about garlic bread? We got a local baker.
Why not?
Foot-long loaves of garlic bread, 12,000 of those later a week and 25,000 tortillas and 2,000 pounds of potatoes and veggies. And it just evolved into that. And then we let people decide, well, you know what? If you go in the fish market, any combination of fish you make for an extra $1 a pound will make it into the same tray. And then we just raised the price of everything $1 and made it free. That's an accounting trick, guys. I don't know if you know anything about accounting.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Well, speaking of accounting, then the first thing I'm going to do after this recording is go into Restaurant 365, and I want to look at your check average in the parking lot versus your check average when you were the Italy, not so Italy concept, right? Because I'm sure it's gone way up.
It's interesting. It's hard to, I don't know if we had 365 before. I think it was easier to integrate it after. But what's interesting is, For the restaurant, the Long Beach location, it acts more as a traditional restaurant where there's servers. So you can see that I think the check average is somewhere around $33, right, per person. But because of the QR code, people are scanning and buying for their entire family on one check, and it doesn't separate.
There's no guest count, right?
Yeah, so
people.
And there's tons and tons of kids, and then the kids don't drink alcohol, obviously. So the price is harder to calculate, but I think it's a little bit higher.
Well, just the beer multiplier that you talked about earlier,
yeah,
like that alone.
But if you're buying like $100 tray for 4 people with a few beers versus a plate on the like a Long Beach, the way that's POS and restaurants, it does give us a little bit better reading. The San Pedro, because it's family style, that's one of the things we're still trying to work through is how do we train our staff to enter in those guest counts so we can see. But what I had to do, the reason I know it was 2 million people is I hired an engineering company to count the cars and count the people. And then I figured out from there what we were doing. Because we had like 5 different point of sale systems at the time and no real technology other than that. So we had to spend, it wasn't bad. It was like 2,000 people. It was about $2,000 maybe for a weekend. And they counted something like 8,000 cars on a Sunday in August.
I know a few people that could have done that cheaper than an engineering
Right.
firm. I mean, just kind of hang out and count how many go by. So next time, let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I might need it again. But it was eye opening to see the numbers. Like it was, we were looking at it. Well, the interesting part about it was it allowed us to say, okay, essentially these are companies the government uses when they publish stats like that. Like how many people visit Monterey Aquarium? How many people go to the water parks in town? And what we realized is the only seaside attraction on the entire West Coast that was bringing in more people than us that wasn't subsidized, right? Like the aquariums are subsidized because you got a lot of school buses going in, was SeaWorld. Only SeaWorld was beating us at the time we did the count. So we're like, and that was an interesting conversation when I was kind of meeting with the city council and the mayor about like, we don't want to be evicted. We want to stay open. And I had these numbers I could show Mayor Garcetti at the time for LA. And he goes, well, my roommate in college is the CEO of SeaWorld. How do we kick his ass? I'm like, oh, good trigger. I didn't know that.
Well, lucky for you, there's a documentary coming out that probably is not going to paint them in the nicest picture. So.
No, that's right. It's probably about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's.
But that was about getting the right kind of help that knew how to do that and being innovative and understanding the narratives and stories and being able to weave it all together. That's where all of it fit for me. So, yeah. Did I leave you speechless? Did I break the podcast?
No, there's just there is a narrative theme here that I'm sort of picking up on. Not just the eviction to parking lot to restaurant to eviction to parking lot, but like this sort of narrative journey that your company's taken. It sort of fits.
Yeah.
With, there is that peak, there is that denouement. There have been these sort of moments. It's pretty incredible.
Well, if you watch, I think the first episode on Amazon Prime will tell you that. My grandfather wasn't really a restaurateur. He was a bookie. I mean, he was opening the business as a front. And he gave my dad and his best friend like an opportunity to go to school or go to work. And they hated school. So they worked and made it, like pushed it to become the legitimate business that it did. But my grandfather's background was I just got to show where the money's coming from.
So who's the one that said they wanted to open the biggest fish market in town? Who said that?
So that would be my uncle. So when my grandfather, Mackey, opened the business in 1956, my dad and Tommy, his best friend, who's like I call him my uncle because they grew up together. And the families go all the way back to Ischia, actually. It was right a little island off the coast of Naples, where a lot of the families in San Pedro came from. They, as the story goes, they're in high school and it's career day. And they ask everyone around the classroom at age 15, what do you want to do when you grow up? And Tommy's like, I just want to own the biggest fish market in town. And so, like, I was told that many, many, many years later. It might have actually been at my dad's funeral now that I think about it, which would be like 25 years ago. But it was like, really? So talk about, like, visualization.
Manifest destiny. Let's go. Yeah, that's amazing.
Destiny. Like, it was incredible. So that's what he did.
And now you've got the biggest fish restaurant in town.
Yeah. And we were able to sit him down and say, like, we don't understand. There's a big gap between that 1956 and when I was 12, like in 1882. Like, what happened in the middle of all that? And he goes, it's interesting as you guys wouldn't know this, but when we were trying to figure out what to do to rebuild in 82, Jack in the Box and McDonald's. People stopped cooking. They were driving through for convenience. So we created the restaurant concept to give people an opportunity to just walk up and get food because we didn't know how else to compete. And that really led us to becoming what we are now, or as opposed to just being a fish market with shrimp cocktails and corn on the cob, which is what we had been doing prior to that. So it's reading the world,
Yeah,
what do people want? Where's the culture shifting, and how do we take care of that?
that's very cool. And so
That's awesome.
what's your tech landscape look like now, Michael? You've got Toast, you've got
Yeah.
M&U, you've got Restaurant 365.
We just switched to Paycom for payroll. That's supposed to integrate with all that. I think it is. I'm afraid to ask, to be honest, because it never works out the way you thought it's going to work out. But those are the main ones. We're talking to some different companies about implementing some more high tech security cameras. We haven't picked the company yet. There's a couple that we're talking to because, well, this parking lot gets broken into every week, sometimes multiple times a week because it's exposed. I mean, there's nothing to take. And the people come in with masks on. It's to try to rattle doors in front of the camera. So we're looking at some technology like that. I think that's probably the majority of what we have, if I'm thinking through it. I think you named them all off. Right? Yeah. I can't think of another one right now.
I
Yeah,
mean, like
that's
kind of
pretty about it.
the tech pieces that are there. I mean, like, you mentioned before about the QR codes changing the way that
Mm-hmm.
people can order, changing that guest experience, kind of changing the flow of business. I mean, QR codes feel like the most polarizing thing in restaurants. People either like think they're
Yeah.
great, like I don't mind it because I can just order something, add it on, whatever, pay the check. I don't have to worry about waiting on somebody. But I mean, I worked in a restaurant coming out of the pandemic that like people were like, ready to throw things at you if they even saw one, anywhere in the
Yeah.
restaurant. What was that like for you guys? I mean, for where you're at with the clientele that you had coming in, what kind of a shift was that?
Yeah. So that's a great question. We were probably at least 50% cash prior to moving to this parking lot, and not in Long Beach because that was a more traditional restaurant, a lot of credit cards. But the San Pedro location, we had a lot of ATMs on hand because people wanted to pay cash. And we're like, we're going to have to eliminate all that because this QR code system, we just didn't have the space and the ability to do much more. You could pay with cash. We had an option, but what we found was people preferred it in the beginning because they were used to waiting so long to get the food and their drink, and now it was coming to them faster. So that worked. The other thing that was interesting, we thought it might create a negative like consequence for labor, but it didn't. It actually made the runners making so much more money on tips. Like I think one of my nephews goes, "Dad, I need gas money. Can I just come to work for the day and run some trays?" And he made like $400 in tips because of the volume that we're doing. So that creates some other issues, right? Because you've got back of the house, and they're not always able to. You had back of the house, but you had management. Management, I think, legally can't
Yeah.
partake on that. So you're like, they're making more money than me, but I have all the responsibility. So we had to figure out some ways to fix that. But I think we worked through all that stuff. Now what we're noticing is that people miss the experience of coming in and feeling, touching, seeing, and even, believe it or not, smelling the fish. So, because we had it very hands-on process. So we're trying to build that back in. Again, that studios will build that. We'll incorporate that as we build into our bigger locations. But that was we thought maybe we could just do it with the QR code and you can see the fish and pick them on your phone, but they really want to see and touch it. So we had to figure out how to bring that back in. But that was doable. So where I really see it going is it's going to be a hybrid. You'll be able to come in, like Monterey as an example, you'll come in and you'll be able to pick all these things out and order at the counter and pick up your food and bring it to the table. But if you're sitting there and you're thirsty and you want to, like, forgot to order this, I think there's still going to be the opportunity to do both. You can QR code and get additional food, or you can go and pick it out. Again, you never know if these things are going to work until you test it out. So it's like hypothetical, but it just seems like to not have that technology built in. I don't know. People liked it. And I think the most common comment we would get is, I would not wait in a line like this anywhere else except Disneyland. So if we could take that away, because I don't want to wait in a line like that at Disneyland ever.
I don't want to wait in the line ever.
It became a fast pass opportunity. I think is what we accidentally created, was a way to fast pass people. So I think it's going to stick around.
Have you guys tried anything either tech wise or just kind of otherwise in the restaurants that like was a major flop, like something you tried and you were excited for it? And like you said, you don't know if it's going to work until you try it. Have you guys had anything that kind of just went totally the other direction where you're like, we can't change this back fast enough?
I feel like there were some things we did. We had other point of sale systems. We might even be in contract with some of them still that we had brought in and tested, because San Pedro was so vast, right? You had this fish market area, and it was hard to find a point of sale system that worked with scales, because everything was by the pound. So we put something in the kitchens that didn't work in the fish market and would never work in the crab tanks because there was just so much steam, like everything would break all the time. So that was one experiment. We also, this is related, unrelated. I had this great idea probably 15 years ago to put TV screens everywhere. And I thought we could create ad space around them. Like you could watch the image, but then you could pay to have a scrolling ad, and that could be a revenue stream. And instead, people just didn't get up and leave. So it went from having, people sitting there way too long to begin with to never wanting to get up. And it actually kind of backfired. So and it was interesting because our clientele was predominantly Latino. So there was a long time where that demographic wasn't really into football. So we were trying to figure out a way to bring people in on Super Bowl Sunday. And now, we can't even turn the game on because they don't leave. It's like totally shifted, So, but it's part of it is you do the best research you can, you ask around and you test things out, but sometimes you just don't know until you turn it on. We also have tried some we've run a lot of tests on social media to try to gauge viewership. And I've never been totally satisfied that we had the right tech for that. Like how many people watch Kings of Fish when we put it on this platform versus this one versus that one? And they're also different. Now that's changing now. I think the technology is probably there. We're testing out YouTube and not as much Facebook as we did before. But, it's interesting. It's across all those platforms. We have like 600 and almost 700,000 followers.
Wow. So
we have a pretty big viewership across the social media platforms, which is cool.
Yeah, you got to leverage that.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
Yeah. Did you guys do anything? Only because of where we are today in the month. You guys ever do any fun, silly little April Fool's pranks for people? Like, you have that many people, kind of like following along. Did you try to do anything to mess with folks? Or,
it's funny. I don't know if we did this year. I could tell you some prank. There's no shortage of pranks that we pulled on inside the business. We didn't need an excuse like a day of the month. It used to be if you were working on your birthday, they would throw you either into the crab tanks with live crab and lobster, or just right over the ledge into the harbor, depending on the tide.
That is a no. That is a no for me.
Yeah, I didn't work on those days. Well, I think I knew better, but that was a common one.
That's awesome.
Come on, that's one of those moments where you just got to take your owner hat off and just lean in to your team. Let them do that. Build the culture.
Did you ever have a rock crab bite you before?
Yeah, it sounds awful.
Not pleasant.
I can't say I've tried that. I don't know. It's not on my bingo card for 25, so I'm going to have to say not this year, but maybe we'll talk about it next year.
Yeah, if you ever need to experience it, just let me know.
Yeah. He knows where to find you in the parking lot. I know we're coming up on time here, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about how you're using Restaurant 365 sort of in your daily role and how your teams are using the solution.
No, it's a great tool. I mentioned before we use it a lot for reporting. I was checking in with the team today. I'm like, hey, I might be on this podcast later or anything you want me to tell. Like, what we really want, Maria, who works with us, and she has predominantly been our 365 person since we implemented it. She goes, it's really great to be able to scan all these invoices and not have to worry about finding them later. Because, especially as we're going through and we're figuring out our financials moving forward for all this expansion, you're pulling up all this data. And we have boxes and boxes of invoices that have turned moldy in garages in storage. Oh, yeah. And I was like, so thankful we don't have that anymore. That's one thing. I think the diversity, not diversity, but just like the different options you have for reporting that you can pull. Getting a report every day with our numbers, my email is fantastic. Not wondering, is this, am I going to find out at the end of the month that, what Tommy, my uncle, used to do? He would go into my aunt was our our CFO for a long time. She passed away some time ago, but he would just go in every 15th of the month to see if the balance in the bank account was higher or lower than the month before. That's really his only indicator.
That was his litmus test. Okay,
how are we doing? To know.
Yeah.
So when we would start to pull these reports, he just, oh my God, why do we spend this much? What's going on? Before this call, I was on with our financial team because we're putting our basically like a proposal together to go out to market to find financing for the new buildings we're building. And it's just like having that data available that we could go line by line and say, well, this isn't relevant. This goes below. This is because you have a combination of what we're doing to operate the restaurants, but then there's all the corporate overhead.
Right.
And it's so much easier now to separate the two. Whereas before it would take months to go through and like pick it all apart to get what we needed. So it's been helpful that way too. Really great.
Awesome. Love to hear that.
Yeah. I also like the messaging tool because I don't have an effective way. We have not found an effective way for me to communicate with the whole staff. So I try to do a weekly 5-minute talk on where we're at, where we can give everybody. And so it's like, okay, well, I can record it here and I'll put it on YouTube and then I can send the YouTube link out to everybody through 365, which is really great because we just did not have a way to do that before.
That is a good pro tip.
Yeah. Now, if I could get people to watch it, it would be better. But I know they're getting it.
They do have analytics for that now, Michael. You can find out.
It's like it says 25 viewers, but there's 300 people. I know I sent it out to everybody. Am I that boring?
You got to bury some little Easter egg in there, like just in the middle of it. You just kind of stop. Hey, if you mention this, I don't know, get some kind of a prize. You got to find some way to try to, get people not just to click and fast forward.
Why did my marketing mind think of that? That's a great idea. Starbucks gift card or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, I will take compensation in the form of shrimp tray next time I'm by the restaurant.
Anytime. I'm not bringing it to your hotel room with that girl in the back. That's
if you just took the sound from that, it sounds way different than what's
Yeah. That'll be a sound bite to promote the episode, I'm sure. So we always like to end, Michael, with some sort of hot take on the industry, something you love, maybe something you hate, current trend. For Rich, it sounds like it's QR codes. What is it for you?
I do. Sorry. Go ahead. Rich, are you going first?
Oh, no. This is all you.
You.
Mark has to listen to me vent about things all the time. So we want to hear from you.
Good question. I mean, I think, I was back. I had the same take on the QR code issue too. I think it's worked out for us, but I'm still trying to work that out. I think the most challenging thing that we're dealing with is, you have this inflation issue and wages inflating at the same time, and it's really difficult to cope with. People don't understand that typically the restaurant industry has this really tight margin. So it's always like, oh, you're a business owner, you must be super wealthy. I'm like, well, I'm only as good as the people that work for us. And I'm happy to pay them as much as we can. But at the same time, the more we raise prices, the more a customer has to pay. So it's not really on me as much as it's on the customer. So it's kind of dealing with that's really challenging. And some of the narratives around that, and at least in LA, California, are tough. But I also think that the secret sauce to all that is storytelling. And like you were talking about before,
clearly.
I have learned. I have learned through trial and error that the most powerful thing you have in your business is your story. If you have 6 businesses that are identical to yours, people will tend to go with the one where they know the story. And we did. We had 6 copycat businesses next to us for a long time because our landlord never enforced the lease that they weren't supposed to copy us. It's just government, and it worked out because our story was the best. And so we had the majority of people, but we couldn't handle the crowds we had. So having copycats gave customers an alternative to not have to wait in line. And it actually helped. It helped with us. But that storytelling, and the reason it's powerful, and my best example of that is we worked with a company called Food Beast for a while. And Food Beast, they marketed themselves at the time as the millennial. It was the Food Network for millennials, and they were just constantly producing content. So like, we want to get on TV. We'd like to take your first 4 episodes and we'll put them on and you'll get our eyeballs and we'll produce a video. And they did this video, came down, filmed this thing, went live the next day, and they called it the Super Tray. Only because they're like, what is this tray called? I go, I don't know, Super Tray. I made up a name. It wasn't even on the menu really. It went viral and it got 55 million views. And 30,000 customers came down in the course of 10 days from almost every state in the country. And I had never seen that happen before, anything since or like, but it showed me that telling your stories, utilizing social media, and having something really compelling, people will respond to it as long as it's valuable to them. And that worked well for us.
Do people still come in and ask for the super tray? Is that a thing?
Well, I didn't think so. The 3 years passed, and I saw that I wasn't paying attention. And all these people, where's the super tray? I can't figure out this. Nobody put a menu up. So I had a menu board created that said super tray and like King's tray and King's of Fish tray. And all of a sudden, everyone just wanted something to point at.
Right.
And I'm like, and then we had another kitchen that didn't even sell shrimp. But somebody had the idea to put the thing there, and all of a sudden we had to put a griddle in because they couldn't keep up with the demand for people looking for this tray that was 3 years ago on a viral video. So, yes, and I just attribute all that to storytelling.
Yeah.
So. A good story and a good shrimp tray. I'll get them every time.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today. You can find San Pedro Fish Market and Michael all over social media on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can check out the show Kings of Fish on Amazon Prime.
Season 2 coming soon. And
coming soon.
Of course, everybody, thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you have a great day, a great shift, a great quarter, profitable Monday, wherever you are and wherever your restaurant may be. And please, again, don't forget to like and subscribe everywhere. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really wherever you listen. And you can follow us across all the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and you can always visit us at restaurant365.com. Michael, thanks again. Rich, always good to see your face, sir.
Likewise. Michael, thank you. And who knows? We're going to be popping up at conferences and shows all over the place. So you might see Mark and I running around at an event near you.
Yeah, I'm coming in for the super tray. Yeah, we'll see you in Chicago.
I'll be there for sure.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.